I was raised as a child bride for 10 years. Just because Philip was mischievous back then, I ended up with brain damage. My reactions are half a beat slower than other people. Everyone said he treated me unbelievably well, that I was a fool blessed with foolish luck. Until the girl we both grew up with framed me and I fell into the water, yet by misfortune came fortune. And I was no longer foolish. Overjoyed. I went to find Philip, only to hear him complain to someone. I could never like someone mentally impaired. His friend asked, "Then are you still going to marry her?" Philip's tired voice sounded indifferent. "Yeah, I'll marry her. Consider it paying off my guilt. Divorce can always come later." So on the day we were supposed to register our marriage, I ran away. Later, I heard that Philip, the carefree, playboy heir, flew across all 7 continents. Just to find a little fool. Chapter 1. The next time I saw Philip, I was attending a charity gala as a representative. The youthful boyishness he once had was gone, now that he had taken over the family business. He carried himself with a composed, refined maturity. Every gesture was steady and restrained, and Monica was by his side. She used to be my close friend. I quietly lowered my head and focused on eating, not sparing them even a glance. After all, there was nothing left connecting us anymore. But Monica clearly had no intention of letting me off. Her tone was exaggeratedly warm. "Luciana, you finally decided to come back." As if we were still close. I lowered my eyes and said nothing. Yet she kept talking as if to herself. "That was really unfair of you back then, leaving without a word. Philip and I searched for you for so long." I froze for a moment. Then I let it go. After all these years, they should have ended up together anyway. Chapter 2. Everyone at the table was sharp and perceptive. Seeing us talk, they quickly joined in. "You two know each other?" Some had already recognized me. "I remember Philip and Luciana had an engagement, right? Did they get married?" Philip tilted his head back and downed a glass of wine, but his gaze remained fixed on me, mixed with emotions I couldn't read. "What are you talking about? Don't you see Monica sitting next to Philip?" Realizing the mistake, the speaker hurried to change the subject. "I heard Miss Luciana just returned to the country, coming straight to a charity fundraiser, truly beautiful and kind-hearted." This fundraiser was specifically for children with developmental disabilities. Its purpose was to provide them with better medical care and help them recover as soon as possible. I attended at someone else's request. Monica seemed to seize the opportunity. She smiled, though the mockery in her eyes couldn't be hidden. "Of course, after all, Luciana has the most authority to speak on this." "What do you mean?" someone asked. She looked at me across the table. "After all, only a fool understands another fool best. Philip, isn't your foundation looking for a spokesperson? Luciana is the best candidate, an idiot endorsing an idiot. Maybe that'll even help raise more funds." Chapter 3. As soon as those words left her mouth, everyone's expressions shifted. Monica quickly covered her mouth. Sorry. I misspoke. Luciana isn't dumb at all." I frowned, set down my chopsticks, and lost my appetite. Monica stared at me smugly, thinking I was still as easy to manipulate as before. I wiped my hands, lifted my gaze, and fixed it on her. "Right. I'm not slow anymore, and I have you to thank for that. If you hadn't deliberately pushed me into the water and made me hit that pillar back then, I wouldn't have been cured by such a twist of fate. Isn't that right, my so-called best friend who used to covet my boyfriend?" I still remember that day. It was my college graduation. After taking photos and saying goodbye to my classmates, Monica told me Philip had prepared a surprise for me. He had also said before that once I graduated, we would register our marriage. I thought it was going to be a proposal, so I believed her. But Monica took me to an abandoned swimming pool. Her usual gentle expression vanished as she said, "There's no surveillance here," and then shoved me hard into the water. Ever since I nearly drowned as a child and ended up with brain damage from the fever, I had been terrified of water and couldn't swim. I slammed into an iron pillar nearby, and my head spun. Yet through the haze, I heard her voice. "If you're going to be stupid, why not stay completely that way? Why make Philip take responsibility for you, burden him for the rest of his life, and leave me with no chance? Luciana, why you? I'm better than you, smarter than you. Without you, he would have noticed me." Then she left. As I was about to sink to the bottom, A desperate instinct to survive made me recall something I had once read: relax. Let your body float, and you might be saved. And somehow, I really did climb out on my own, but it felt like a layer of fog had lifted from my mind, and everything became clear, a misfortune that turned into a blessing. Chapter 4. Because of my words, Monica's face turned deathly pale, her breathing uneven. Philip, on the other hand, seemed unable to process it. Frozen in place, I had no desire to stay any longer. I stood up and left. While I was texting at the entrance, Philip stepped in front of me, his eyes lowered slightly. My reflection caught in them. There was a hint of regained hope in his voice, mixed with cautious hesitation. Luciana, can we talk? I shook my head. No, I'm waiting for my boyfriend. Boyfriend? Philip's expression stiffened, as if he could barely keep his balance. And yet, he didn't seem willing to believe it. I looked away and continued. I came back this time to get engaged. His face darkened, as if it could drip with storm clouds. After a long pause, he spoke, his voice suppressed with emotion. You disappeared for years without a trace. Now you come back and tell me you're getting engaged? Luciana, do you think pushing me away like this is some kind of game? His throat bobbed slightly, his questioning laced with loneliness. He stared at me stubbornly, as if he wouldn't let it go until I gave him an explanation. I pressed my lips together and looked up at him. Philip, what does my coming back, or not, have to do with you? Do I owe you an explanation of where I go or what I do? Chapter 5. He parted his lips, but his eyes didn't leave me for even a second. Too many emotions churned within them, until they finally condensed into one sentence. You're lying to me, aren't you? I didn't know why he refused to believe I had a boyfriend. Or maybe he still thought I was the same girl from before, the one who revolved entirely around him, with only him in her heart. Do you even know how I've been looking for you? I cut him off. I don't want to hear it. Philip, it doesn't matter anymore. Why doesn't it matter? He stepped closer. I took a step back. Seeing my resistance, a flicker of hurt appeared in his eyes. You used to cling to me all the time. I didn't know Monica would push you into the water 5 years ago. If I had known, as if he had grasped onto something important. His eyes lit up and he hurried to explain. Did you misunderstand something between me and her? I've never been with her all these years. I've been waiting for you. A low rumble of thunder sounded. The wind picked up, and a light drizzle began to fall from the sky. I looked at him quietly. He took a breath, raising his hand as if to brush the loose strands of hair from my face. I turned my head and avoided him. He paused, then slowly lowered his hand, his voice thick with emotion. Didn't we agree that once you graduated, we'd register our marriage? Didn't you say you'd only ever marry me when you grew up? Luciana, don't look at me like a stranger. His vulnerability left me momentarily at a loss. He hadn't been like this before. He used to look down on me, and it was him who had said not getting married would suit him just fine. Chapter 6. That day, when I climbed out of the pool, my joy outweighed everything. I couldn't wait to find Philip and tell him the good news. But instead, I overheard his conversation with his friends. I could never like someone mentally impaired. All these years, I've already done more than enough for Luciana. His friend laughed and asked, Isn't she your family's child bride? I heard she's lived with your family for 10 years. You've only ever had Luciana by your side all these years. If that's not liking her, then what is? Get lost. Philip exhaled a puff of smoke. You clueless single guy, what do you know about liking someone? A burst of laughter followed. Then someone boldly asked, Honestly, I'm curious, since Luciana is like that. Do you even feel that kind of desire a man has for a woman toward her? Philip's face turned cold. He pressed his lips together. After a long moment, he said, You want to know? Then go chase her yourself and see whether you'd even have a physical reaction to someone like that. My fingers curled slightly, as if something inside me was shattering piece by piece. She's yours, I wouldn't dare. But judging by your tone, are you still going to marry her? There was a brief silence. Then Philip's weary voice sounded. Yeah, I'll marry her. Bringing her home will count as paying off my guilt. Divorce can come later. I stood at the doorway, soaked from head to toe. The cold seeped into me, inch by inch. Chapter 7. It was his friend who noticed me first. Luciana? I was brought into the private room. The warm air hit me, but I couldn't stop trembling. My delayed reactions made everything come a beat slower, including the spread of heartbreak through my body. But that only made it feel more vivid. Philip stubbed out his cigarette and gave a faint smile. Heard everything? I nodded. He didn't care. To him, I was slow anyway, so it didn't matter if I heard. He cast me a look of annoyance. Look at you, what a mess again. Luciana, when are you ever going to stop being such a headache? Haven't you embarrassed me enough already? I stayed silent. My nose stung slightly. After a moment, I spoke softly. Philip, if you don't want to marry me, you could have just told me. Instead of humiliating me like this in front of everyone, I wouldn't have clung to you. I wouldn't have pestered you endlessly. Besides, the idea of marriage was something he himself had brought up when I turned 18 and started college. He said it in front of both our families. He had said, taking care of Luciana and protecting her has become my habit. Ever since we were little, I've told her I'd marry her when we grow up. I like her, not because of responsibility or guilt. And now, what he said was that marrying me would just be atonement and that he would divorce me later. I had always been slow, stubborn in my own way. Even if I reacted slower than others, I could still hear the impatience in Philip's tone. I could hear the implication that he saw me as a burden. Others called me a simple-minded girl, while he was the golden boy, admired and pursued by many. A quiet, slow girl like me only made him lose face. So I lowered my gaze to him and asked calmly, if you don't like me, then why did you lie about wanting to marry me? Philip, you could have just treated me as a sister. Philip stood up, frowning. If I told you directly, what would my parents think of me? They've already decided you're their future daughter-in-law. Would anything I say even matter? You've been following me around since you were little. You liked me that much. How was I supposed to reject you with that sister excuse? So, it was my fault? But he had clearly said he liked me before. I pressed a hand to my chest. It hurt. I understand now what I should do. I bowed deeply to him, forcing down the tremor in my voice. Thank you, brother, for taking care of me all these years. We won't be getting married. You won't have to worry about me embarrassing you anymore. Hearing me call him brother, Philip's expression darkened even further. It seemed this was the first time that this simple-minded girl, had ever defied him. I turned to leave, but someone stopped me. His friend sounded anxious. Luciana. Philip didn't mean it. He was just angry. You two were about to register your marriage. What's going on here? I trembled as I walked out, when suddenly I heard the sound of something shattering behind me. Philip had kicked over a stool, his voice filled with suppressed anger. Luciana, if you walk out that door, don't regret it. I turned back, glanced at him standing in the shadows, and gave a faint smile. I won't regret it. From behind me, someone said, Philip, go after her and talk to her. She's just a kid. Why are you taking it so seriously? I wanted to say, I was never a child. I was just slower than others. I could understand what people said. I could feel what malice was. But what answered instead was Philip's cold voice, each word cutting clearly into my ears. It's better if she stops clinging to me. Not getting married is exactly what I want. Chapter 8. So, I couldn't understand the Philip in front of me anymore, but I didn't want to get entangled with him either. He stood there silently, staring at me, waiting for an answer. What kind of answer was he even expecting? Some answers are bound to hurt. As we held each other's gaze, his assistant hurried over, looking flustered. Sir, Miss Monica is having an asthma attack. She can barely breathe. Do you want to go check on her? You're supposed to meet her parents tonight. Philip immediately turned around, then looked back at me. Luciana, can you wait for me? I'll be right back. I shook my head. No. Seeing him again didn't stir much emotion in me. After his figure disappeared, I quietly waited for Berlin in the lobby. He had things to do tonight too. I told him I could take a cab back, but he insisted on picking me up. The drizzle outside slowly turned heavier, the whole sky dim and gray. This city had frequent rain. I couldn't help but regret not listening to Berlin. I should have brought an umbrella. I sighed softly, my gaze falling on a familiar black car not far away. Just as I was about to stand, that person had already stepped out. with long strides, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit. He looked even taller and more refined, his aura cool yet noble, holding a black umbrella. His eyes immediately found me. He waved, signaling for me to stay where I was. I obediently drew my legs back. He walked toward me step by step. There was a gentle smile on his face, one that could melt anyone at a glance. That's the kind of person he was. Always gentle with me, always emotionally steady. Only when he reached me and extended his hand did I come back to my senses. Looking at his warm, broad hand, I placed mine in his. Berlin chuckled softly, then intertwined our fingers. Did you wait long? Are you tired? I shook my head. He pulled me under the umbrella, wrapping an arm around my shoulders so not a single drop of rain touched me. That familiar woody scent made me feel at ease. On the passenger seat of the car, there were desserts and pastries he had specially bought. I was worried you didn't eat enough. I pointed at my stomach. It's already this round. That's still not enough, he said with a smile. Our Luciana should put on a little more weight. Chapter 9. In the car, I still told him about running into Philip today. I didn't expect to run into them. He ruffled my hair, but his expression darkened slightly. Did they bully you? I shook my head. This is my fault. I shouldn't have let you go in my place. It's okay, Berlin. I won't let people push me around so easily anymore. Berlin knew everything about my past. That day, after coming back from the bar, I sent messages to both families saying I wouldn't be getting married. Then I packed my things and went abroad. I wasn't running away from them, I just wanted some quiet time for myself. For all those years, I had been used to staying by Philip's side. Other than painting, my world revolved around him and Monica. It felt like I had never stepped outside that circle. So I wanted to learn how to live independently, to grow, to make normal friends. I thought that leaving someone who didn't love me would make me feel relieved. But the withdrawal hit harder than I ever expected. It was more than 10 years of companionship, of growing up together, of being inseparable childhood friends. Back then, Philip treated me incredibly well, so well that people said he had no limits when it came to me. He never got angry about it. Instead, he would look at me indulgently and say we would be together for a lifetime. But the moment he stepped into society, he began to change. He started caring about how others saw me, about what they thought of him, as if I was something he couldn't proudly show. But I didn't know what I had done wrong. I knew I was slower than others, so I stayed quietly by his side, never causing trouble. I knew I wasn't smart enough, so whenever he brought me to gatherings, I would just smile obediently and stay beside him, because my mother once told me that no one strikes someone who smiles. I knew I wasn't outstanding, so I worked hard at the one thing I loved, painting, trying to shine in it, to prove to him that I wasn't a burden, that I could live well on my own with my own skills. But no one ever told me why someone who once loved you would stop loving you, and no one taught me what to do when that happened. All I could do was feel my way through it, little by little, searching for a way not to hurt so much. The process was painful, but I gradually came to understand that I couldn't expect someone to stay the same forever. Just like how I was when I used to be slow. I admit I'm not that brave. Even now, I still cry late at night, thinking about those days. Back then, the sunlight was just right. He would wave at me and say, Luciana, take your time walking, I'll always be here. But I never once thought about turning back. Berlin's appearance was an accident. That day, I was sitting on a bench, staring blankly at the seagulls, watching them fly freely in the sky. I felt envious. Then I slowly walked to the shore, wanting to reach out and have them land for me. The waves wet the tops of my feet. Just as I was about to step back, a man behind me suddenly pulled me into his arms. He said, "Don't do anything stupid. Seagulls aren't going to die for you." He had mistaken me for someone trying to end her life. Chapter 10. He said he had been observing me for a long time. He said I was always spacing out alone, that there was no light in my eyes. That was not a good sign. I told him that my mind hadn't been quite right before, that I reacted a bit slower than others, so my sadness always came later, and lingered longer. Some bad memories just refused to fade. Even now, I still remember Berlin's voice, gentle, clear, and warm, standing out vividly amid the cries of seagulls filling the sky. He said, You don't have to rush to forget. If you let beautiful memories fill your heart, those bad ones will only dare to lurk in the corners. I felt like what he said made a lot of sense. From that day on, Berlin slowly stepped into my life. He knew I loved painting, so he took me to different cities to experience new things. In Venice, the city of water, he followed locals to hidden spots tourists never found. On the streets of Rome, he rode a bicycle with me through winding alleys, telling me about Roman holiday. He said life never quite goes the way you want, but meeting someone is the greatest gift fate can offer. On the lawn outside the Leaning Tower of Pisa, he held up an umbrella for me, protecting the fleeting spark of inspiration that came to me. And beneath Prague Castle, bathed in the glow of the setting sun, he clasped his hands together and made a wish. For the first time, I experienced different landscapes with someone else by my side. And for the first time, I realized that a life without Philip and Monica, one filled with other friendships, could be this wonderful. Chapter 11. It wasn't until later that I realized something was off. Berlin seemed to have fallen for me. My first instinct was to run, but he stopped me, so I had no choice but to stumble through an explanation of myself. I'm slow, not very smart, not socially smooth. I don't understand how the world works. I feel like I'm a burden to others. I have so many flaws. He cut me off. Luciana, aren't those the purest and most beautiful parts of you? Why would you think you're a burden to anyone? My friends, they all like you. They enjoy talking to you. They say being friends with Luciana is something truly wonderful. You're someone who brings comfort and warmth to others. So don't deny yourself. My chest grew warm. So what my mother once said was true. She had said, our Luciana isn't foolish. She just treasures every little thing others do for her, carefully choosing her words and actions to make people happy. She treats everyone with genuine kindness. And if Luciana doesn't know how to express herself, just being a smiling listener is enough to make people like her. So now, hearing Berlin say that many people liked me, my eyes suddenly felt warm. Maybe I wasn't a burden to others after all, and they didn't look at me with strange eyes. Instead, they would say, being friends with Luciana is such a wonderful thing. Chapter 12. Berlin prepared a grand confession for me, inviting all our friends to witness it. I still couldn't help asking him why he liked me. Counting on my fingers, I listed my flaws. I'm gentle to a fault, not lively enough, and all I do every day is paint. Berlin held my fingers, warmth spreading through my whole body. He tilted his head slightly, his deep eyes seeming to hold a sky full of stars. When you like someone, you like everything about them. I like you as you are, not because of what you're like, but because you are you. I even told him about what happened with Philip, trying to scare him away. After all, someone I had grown up with for over 10 years could end up resenting me. What about someone I'd only known for 2? He said, Luciana, people are different. What we'll have is a normal relationship, not sympathy, not pity, not guilt. A normal relationship? I asked, confused. It means I confess to you. I take you on dates. We hold hands and walk through every street and alley. We eat together, watch movies, cook together, live together, sharing every moment of life. And later, Berlin really did all of that. For the first time, I understood, so this is what love is supposed to feel like. It's seeing my worst side, and still loving me. It's seeing me at my lowest, yet still praising the good in me and helping me stand up again. There are expectations, bittersweet moments, sweetness, arguments, little tempers, reconciliations. It's wanting to share every little thing with him, planning a future together, a future where it's just him and me. In those ordinary days, I found a way of living that truly felt right for me. At that moment, I thought of Philip. Between him and me, no one had ever formally said, we're together. It felt more like a task, a habit. He thought he had to take care of me. So naturally, he held my hand. We both understood it without saying, assuming that meant we were together. Maybe he himself never knew whether what he felt for me was love or just responsibility. If back then, we had gotten together in front of everyone, if we had blushed and accepted everyone's blessings as a couple, would the ending have been different? Chapter 13. The next time I saw Philip was 3 days later. This time, My return home was partly to prepare for my engagement to Berlin, and partly to organize my art exhibition. I had originally started painting just to make myself seem less slow. I never thought it would one day bloom into something real. In 5 years, I had gained some recognition in the art world. I used a new alias. The exhibition had been kept confidential, but since it was held in the country, if Philip wanted to find it, of course he could. At that moment, I was standing in front of the painting I had created beneath the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Memories surfaced, and I couldn't help but curl my lips into a faint smile. Philip spoke softly, interrupting my thoughts. "Luciana, your painting is amazing." I turned my head. I saw him standing against the light. This seemed to be the first time he had ever praised me so directly. I couldn't help but recall that night, his furrowed brows, the look of disdain on his face as he said I embarrassed him and never gave him peace of mind. But Berlin would never speak to me like that. Even if I messed something up, he would comfort me first, then tell me that everyone was experiencing life for the first time. Who could guarantee they'd do everything perfectly? I nodded at Philip, waiting for what he would say next. I knew he hadn't come just to admire a painting. Sure enough, he stepped slightly closer, but as if remembering my rejection that day, he slowly withdrew. After a long pause, he spoke again. "Seeing you come back, I'm really happy, Luciana. I want to say, there's nothing between Monica and me. I didn't know she'd be there that day. I only had a business meeting with her parents that night when she had an asthma attack. I couldn't just ignore it. Do you know she likes you?" He froze for a moment, then pressed his lips together and nodded. "I only found out after you left the country. She confessed to me, and I rejected her. I really don't have any feelings for her. Do you still like me?" I spoke softly. "Philip, no one likes someone forever, and no one stays in the same place waiting for someone forever. I've been waiting for you." His voice caught slightly. "I thought you were joking." That day, I waited for you at the registry office the whole day. I fell silent for a moment, then sighed. "I never joke about love. These past 5 years, I've traveled everywhere you could possibly be, but I never found you." He pulled out a thick stack of flight tickets from his bag. "I never intended for us to separate. I just, in that moment, you suddenly felt I was a burden, that I would embarrass you, that I was a fiancé you couldn't proudly present. Philip, the moment you thought that way, weren't you already betraying the bond we had as childhood friends, and slapping those promises and vows we once made?" He covered his face, embarrassed that I had exposed what he once truly felt, yet still unable to believe it. "I don't understand. How did we end up like this?" Chapter 14. I didn't understand either, how someone could change along the way. This was someone I had grown up with. Our lives had once been perfectly intertwined. After you left, I founded the Orange Light Foundation, hoping to help more people, to atone for my mistakes, on behalf of those children. "Thank you." His gaze flickered as he looked at me. "Will you forgive me?" I shook my head. "If I forgive you, then I won't be able to reconcile with the version of myself that suffered through all that pain. So I think it's better if we don't see each other again." What he wanted now, my forgiveness, was only because I had heard those words and left decisively. If I hadn't left, if I had pretended not to know and married him, he wouldn't be here apologizing to me now. He would still complain about me behind my back, look down on me in places I couldn't see, and one day, find a reason to explode and divorce me. And afterward, he might even say, "Luciana, the mistakes I made, I've already repaid them over the years," just to silence me, to trap me in even deeper self-doubt and pain. But I didn't doubt his sincerity in this moment. After all, people tend to become obsessed with what they've lost and can no longer have. "Luciana, don't do this." His voice trembled, as if he was about to cry. "Give me a chance to make it up to you." I sighed and pointed to the painting in front of him. "Doesn't this painting look warm?" My boyfriend was right beside me while I painted it all afternoon. He didn't rush me, didn't frown, he just quietly waited. And when I finished, he told me it was beautiful. Not perfunctory praise, but genuine encouragement every time. No one dislikes someone who is gentle and helps you grow. I raised my hand, showing the ring on my finger. "Philip, I'm really getting engaged." "You're lying." I gently interrupted him. I have no reason to lie to you. I told you before, I never joke about love. He wanted to say more, but Berlin, who had been helping out nearby, walked over. I ran toward him and slipped my arm through his. Philip's face turned pale the moment he saw us holding hands. Chapter 15. I didn't know what he was thinking at that moment, but judging from his expression, I guessed he was remembering our past, remembering how close we once were, only to drift apart in the end, remembering how he once said, "I'll always be here," never expecting that he would be the one to leave midway and break that promise. Luciana was slow, a little naive. When someone treated her well, she remembered it for a very, very long time. So in those first years abroad, what I thought about wasn't how Philip had hurt me, but all the ways he had once been kind. Because of that, I doubted myself. On sleepless nights, I wondered if, had I been a little smarter, a little better, he might have kept holding my hand and walking forward with me. But eventually, I came to understand adulthood is about choices. Beyond one mountain lies another, even higher one. If he didn't choose me, that was understandable. But being chosen firmly, that surpasses everything. I simply wasn't the kind of partner he wanted, and that wasn't my fault. Is it him? Philip asked, his voice trembling. I nodded toward Berlin. Berlin looked at Philip. There was no accusation, no hostility, only a gentle smile. Thank you for taking care of Luciana all those years. The color drained completely from Philip's face. His lips parted, but no sound came out. His slightly reddened eyes shifted between me and Berlin. Finally, in a hoarse voice, he forced out an awkward smile. That's what I was supposed to do. There's no such thing as supposed to, Berlin said calmly. If a relationship starts with the chains of I should and I must, then over time, it will inevitably become a burden. At that moment, I finally understood why Philip and I had ended up like this. Philip's body trembled slightly. I could see his fists clenched tightly, his emotions teetering on the edge of collapse. I looked at him and spoke softly. Philip, thank you for being kind to me in the past, but this is as far as we go. Chapter 16. He didn't look like he was going to leave. Berlin patted my shoulder. Luciana, could you go check on the progress over there? I nodded. If Berlin did this, there had to be a reason. I moved toward the other side. I didn't know what the two of them talked about that day. From beginning to end, Berlin remained gentle and composed. All I saw was Philip's back slowly bending, until finally, he fled in a panic. At that moment, memories I hadn't revisited in a long time resurfaced. More than 10 years of meticulous care had made it impossible for me to accept. When I heard those words, that he had long since grown tired of me. Later, I tried to step back and look at everything from an outsider's perspective. No one was completely right, and no one was entirely wrong. We simply wanted different lives. So when he chose to begin a new path, leaving me behind, it was something I could understand. Between us, there had always been an insurmountable barrier, guilt, and one day, it was bound to fall apart. It was just that we were too young then, impulsive, letting emotions override everything. If he had calmly told me he wanted to leave, maybe I wouldn't have walked away without a word. Maybe we could have ended things with dignity. Instead of now, because of those hurtful words, we could never return to how we once were. Chapter 17. During the preparation for the exhibition, Philip didn't show up again, but the day before the opening, I saw Monica. My feelings toward her were more complicated. Monica had been found as the real daughter when she was 12. The adopted daughter wasn't sent away because of the bond they had formed. Back then, Monica came from the countryside, awkward, insecure, and out of place. She had no friends and suffered from asthma. When others bullied her and triggered an asthma attack, I was the one who saved her. That day in the hospital, she broke down crying, saying she felt miserable, that her parents didn't seem to love her that much, that she felt like the extra one in the family. Seeing her cry like that made my heart ache. It reminded me of myself. So I held her hand and told her I would be her friend. I even introduced Philip to her. I thought we were best friends. I never expected Monica to fall for Philip, or even try to kill me. Why did you come back? You already left. Why come back at all? She demanded. but it didn't seem like she needed an answer. She just vented the emotions she had suppressed for so long. Do you know how jealous I am of you? You're so slow, so dull. Why do you get Philip's love? All these years, he's never looked at me even once, even after you left. When my family tried to arrange a marriage, he still refused. I've been jealous of you, yet I could only stay by his side by talking about you. I'm going insane from this, and because of what you said. He checked every surveillance camera from that day and everyone you might have met. He wants to send me to prison. But what did I do wrong? I just loved someone who didn't love me. Is that a crime? She burst into tears. I looked at her expressionlessly, feeling only pity. When no one liked you, I was your first friend. I helped you, introduced you to the few friends I had. I treated you as my best friend, but you wanted me to disappear from this world. Monica, that's not how people should act. There's nothing wrong with liking someone, but you hated the wrong person and took revenge on the wrong target. She stopped sobbing and pointed at me. If I hadn't pushed you into the water, would you have gotten better? Would you have achieved what you have today? Luciana, you're the ungrateful one. I'm the one who saved you. I shook my head. She was beyond saving. I gestured for the security guards to come forward. Then I said to her, Monica, when you do something wrong, you have to pay the price. It wasn't Philip who wanted to send her away. It was me. I had originally planned to deal with it after the exhibition, but she remained stubborn and unrepentant. People have to bear the consequences of the choices they make. Chapter 18. That day, I stood by the riverside, letting the wind blow over me for a long time, so long that I missed many of Berlin's calls. My mind was in chaos, but I was afraid he would worry, so I answered, "Turn around." On the other end was Berlin's low, pleasant voice. I turned, and there he was, standing in the wind. I didn't know how he had found me, but in that moment, my heart felt full. I walked over and hugged him. Berlin, do you think I'm a bad person? He knew what I meant and gently stroked my back. If protecting your own interests from harm counts as being bad, then wouldn't this world be overflowing with terrible people? Or are we supposed to rely on karma alone to punish wrongdoers? Wouldn't heaven be so frustrated it'd collapse from the effort? I couldn't help but laugh. I looked up, meeting his eyes. I used to think of her as a really, really good friend. I know, our Luciana always wants to show kindness to others. That's not your fault. I leaned back into his embrace, my voice slightly muffled. I actually feel like she's kind of pitiful. Does that mean I shouldn't empathize with her? Berlin said, empathy isn't a curse or a reward, it's a gift for those who are kind. And I'm always proud that you have that gift. He always spoke in such comforting ways. I shifted slightly in his arms and sighed softly. I just wonder, why do I have to go through things like this? He replied, if everything went perfectly, it wouldn't be life. What you lose, what you miss, life always has something better planned. I smiled, and that something better is meeting you? Berlin's smile grew bright as he held me tighter. No, I came to you on my own. Chapter 19. On the day of the exhibition, snow began to fall again, soft and endless. I had feathers arranged across the open space, with prisms placed among them. At night, under the reflection of the lights, the prisms cast beams onto the massive blank canvas in the center. Everyone became part of the painting. The exhibition was a success. Naturally, many pieces were sold. My paintings weren't cheap. My agent told me that someone had bought one at a high price, the early piece with darker tones. A broken girl in a vast swimming pool, vivid red blood blending with an intense blue. A powerful sensory impact, and also a grand rebirth. He said the buyer wanted to talk to me after everything ended. So when the crowd dispersed, I saw Philip. Sorry for meeting you like this. I knew, between us, there was still one final goodbye left. That day, Berlin said a few things to me. I waited quietly for him to continue. He said, Luciana didn't become who she is overnight. She's been this way for over 10 years. She was never the one at fault, afraid that others would judge you. She was considerate to a fault, always trying not to trouble you, and yet you saw her as an embarrassment. Your attitude shaped how your friends treated her. Those strange looks they gave her, weren't they because of you? If years of feelings could be shaken by just a glance or a gesture from others, then you never truly loved her. You say you were atoning, that you took care of her out of guilt and responsibility, but it was all just to soothe your own fragile pride. And making crude jokes about intimate matters, you really showed a lack of character. I pressed my lips together, trying to hold back the sting rising in my nose. Philip took a deep breath. He also told me about you these past few years. Luciana is an incredibly kind and gentle girl. If my friends give her even the smallest gift, she'll panic, unable to believe it, and want to return an even greater kindness. But even after years of helping her heal, when we first got together, she would still tirelessly tell me she was slow, that she didn't deserve love, that if someone who seemed to like her for so long didn't actually love her, then maybe she was the problem. Does she not deserve love? No, it's you, Philip. Who doesn't deserve her? She's doing well now. She's grown into the person she wanted to be. And now you come back, asking her to turn around. What right do you have? His voice trembled as he looked at me. So I was wrong all along. Every day after you left, I regretted the things I said. I regret the way I spoke to you, how I hurt you, humiliated you, countless nights. I've wondered if back then, when people asked about you, I had just smiled and said you were wonderful, if I had stood by your side at every gathering, introduced you proudly, said we grew up together and shared something deep, would we have kept going like that forever? I sniffed lightly, unsure what to say. Chapter 20. He stood in the snow, catching a delicate snowflake in his hand. Do you remember when you were 18? It snowed just like this. Back then, we ran through the snow together, throwing snowballs, building snowmen, laughing foolishly even when our bodies were numb from the cold. We lay in the snow, holding hands. He was afraid I'd be cold, though he was cold himself. He still pulled me into his arms. I asked, Philip, will we always be like this? He answered, of course. The happiness back then was real, and the pain later was real too. He looked at me with a bitter smile. If someday we could stand together in the same falling snow, then this life would count as growing old together. I wish more than anything to go back to when we were 18. That moment could have been a lifetime. Romantic, isn't it? But the next line of that poem is, if growing old together could be replaced by snow, then why would there be heartbreak in this world? I turned my head away. Let it go. Philip. Chapter 21. I was wrong. Will you forgive me? He had always been proud in front of me. Now, seeing him lower his head, eyes red, asking for forgiveness, it left me a little at a loss. I thought for a moment. The pain was real, but he wasn't entirely wrong either. For 10 years, I was the only one in his eyes. He carried the burden of me, this so-called liability, without complaint, continuing to treat me well. It's true that my condition was largely because of him. Later, he came to see me as a burden, but constantly holding on to that truth only weighed both of us down. And so many years had passed. Berlin once told me not to dwell on things that make me unhappy. If those things fill your heart completely, how can there be room left for memories that are vivid and alive? So I walked toward Philip, brushed the snow off his shoulders, and smiled faintly. We're all too obsessed with endings. There are so many great lives and loves in this world to witness and experience. But the moment the ending isn't what we want, we immediately feel unwilling to accept it. Or maybe it's the opposite. If even one moment along the way felt like redemption, then maybe we don't need to cling to a so-called perfect ending. I couldn't judge the version of myself who made those choices back then, and time had never made me forgive anyone or anything. It wasn't that I was generous, I just no longer cared. And I could barely remember. But I can't forgive myself. We said we'd be together for a lifetime. I looked at his slightly reddened eyes. Then say sorry to me. He lowered his head. His lashes cast shadows. His lips trembling slightly. Luciana. I'm sorry. So, there's no possibility for us anymore. Is there? A tear clung to his lashes before finally falling. It was the first time I had ever seen him cry. I turned my head and saw Berlin walking toward me through the wind and snow, holding an umbrella, amid the swirling snowflakes. His eyes were full of warmth. His black coat stood out against the endless white, as if he existed beyond the world itself. It felt as though everything else had disappeared, leaving only him. I couldn't help but smile. He came over, wrapped a scarf around me, and gently touched my face. Your face is all red from the cold, And you're still standing here smiling like that. Then he took my hand and slipped it into his warm pocket. I had someone make your favorite sweet porridge. We can drink it when we get home. The umbrella above us shielded me from the falling snow. I smiled at him. Okay. As I turned my head, Philip stood there, stunned, looking at Berlin and me together. Something in his eyes turned deeply sorrowful. Perhaps he had been reminded of how we once were. Now, that gesture no longer belonged to him, he just felt the loss. Large flakes of white snow settled again on his shoulders, as if about to weigh him down completely. Philip, say goodbye to the past. We both need to move forward. As I left, he was still standing there. I turned back once and saw him crouch down, his shoulders trembling, until he slowly shrank into a small black dot in the distance. The engagement is set for the 6th day of next month. What do you think? I smiled and hooked my arm through Berlin's. You decide. I'm fine with anything. He rubbed my head affectionately. Silly girl. You forgot, that's the day we first met. I suddenly realized. Berlin, you really do love your romantic gestures. He corrected me. No, it's about a sense of ritual. Whether it's the beginning, the middle, or the end, every day we love each other is worth commemorating. Suddenly, I remembered a sentence I once saw while visiting a museum with Berlin. Trust this, pain will pass, and love will arrive. So I reached out and hugged him. Berlin, thank you for your sense of ritual, and thank you for coming into my life.